I know that everyone always gives us the Linkin Park comparison, but I think one of the things that Linkin Park, that besides their music, that always was inspirational to me, is that they were just kind of like normal dudes, and like their music was what people fell in love with them for. And then when they fell in love with their music, they realized how great of people they were, and they fell in love with them as people. So it wasn't necessarily their an outlandish personality that gave them their notoriety. It was their music that gave them their notoriety, and that's what I really want to be known for.
All right, guys, this is welcome Matt B of From Ashes to New Pod here, notfest.com. Matt, how we doing today, man?
I am phenomenal. How you doing, man?
Not too bad, man. Yeah, we spent 20 minutes talking about nonsense. Let's dive into Blackout, man. Concept album. Kind of sitting down and writing a concept album. Was it easy to say, hey, let's make this album about this, so everything kind of funnels into this one idea, or was it kind of constraining to kind of keep everything under one umbrella?
I don't think that initially the idea was to make it a concept album. I think that after the first couple songs had started kind of to take form, we had realized that we were kind of riding along the same path as the first record of the band. So, but one of the things that we did consciously do is we said, okay, this was the genre that we broke into. This was the style of the music. And we had kind of done some experimentation since then, and we wanted to go back to that original sound that we had, but be a better version of that sound of ourselves, be the best possible versions of us that we could be. So all of that played together, and I was like, okay, if we got the songs that lyrically sound like this, that sonically sound like this, and the idea is supposed to be this, then the art concept should probably be this. And then we put it all together, and it's like, well, why don't we just make it before day one happened? Like, what happened leading up to day one conceptually? And it was like, well, there had to have been a blackout, right? There had to have been. Initially, it was Armageddon, and we called it Armageddon, but we thought that was too vanilla. So we were like, okay, how can we make it a little bit more interesting than Armageddon? Because there is a song called Armageddon. And then that's when I was like, just kind of thinking, and I'm like, okay, like, well, what happens during Armageddon? Well, what might cause an Armageddon? Well, if our power grids went down and everything blacked out, that might cause an Armageddon. So that was the idea. So we've had some stuff that's been prophetic with our stuff in the past. I'm hoping to God that this is not, and this is just concept.
Was this how much of this was written kind of during pandemic and things like that? Was that kind of going through your brain at the time?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that was a big part of it, right? I always joke around when we do like VIPs and stuff, and people are like, oh, this Blackout record, that thing's so sick. Like, I love every song on it. And it's like, oh, we weren't short of material to write about. I remember something happening in like 2020, 2021, 2022. It kind of pissed us all off, So we definitely had a lot of inspiration there. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it genuinely hits the way that it hits, because we've all been in that same boat. We've all been along that same ride.
One of the lyrics that jumps out at me every single time I listen to it, obviously, is sing you a happy song with a noose around my neck. I absolutely love that lyric. So kind of talk about just that lyric and kind of everything that kind of comes with that.
I wanted to leave this one open. I will say that Danny wrote that lyric.
Okay.
And he is talking about someone in particular. And he's not talking about like a loved one or something. It's more of a business thing. And he's talking about someone in particular and how like he's just talking about like, you want me to do this for you. You want me to do this for you. And you are making my life miserable while I'm doing these things that you want me to do. Like, what do you expect from me? Like, you want me to sing you a happy song while you're killing me? I'm pretty sure you enjoy watching this happen.
I would have never kind of come from the business angle of that. I would have. It just honestly sounds like a relationship song, more of a actual loving relationship or toxic relationship. Not which all of those could be a business relationship, but it truly sounds like obviously a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever scenario you want to put there.
Yeah, I think, and we like to do that with a lot of our stuff, is keep it open-ended and not really dive too far into what the story is actually about. So people can kind of take their own piece out of the song and draw their own conclusion. We do, moving forward, we do want to write some more stuff that's more pointed to where it's kind of like an actual story. I don't know if you're familiar with any of what Bruce Springsteen has done throughout the past, but that guy, like every song is a story,
Right.
about like a third person type thing. So it's like, we never really have done that, and we'd like to do that moving forward. But we do keep things very open ended, simply because we know that people want to, especially with our music, they want to be able to listen to it and go, "Oh, that's how I'm feeling." Like they know exactly how I'm feeling. And 9 times out of 10, we are writing it about what the person thinks that it's about. Just that particular scenario with Hope
Yeah.
You're Happy is actually about something other than what you think that it might be about.
Monster and Me. I mean, your verses on that are top notch. I was reading YouTube comments today, and they're like, Matt's out here spitting better than 99% of rappers out there today, man. So talk about Monster and Me a little bit.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that was a song that was instrumentally in the works for a while, and we had toyed around with doing more songs that were more rap. But we wanted to have like a new metal feel too. So that's why that song
Yeah.
has that like that heavy new metal part, because it's kind of like an ode to the Corns and Limp Bizkits in the early 2000s, like where they
Mhm.
would do those heavy new metal parts, but then break into hip hop. But I wanted to do a more modern style hip hop approach, with your trap hats and things of that nature. So it came out really organically when I actually sat down and wrote to the instrumental. And it is my best bars. And I love when I read comments like the one that you said, because it, as a rap fan, I have been starved for a lot of real good hip hop, and I'm not throwing shade on the entire industry though, because there's a lot of great rappers out there.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I do think that like the more mainstream hip hop kind of went in a way that I can't really understand. And I'm not gonna talk shit on it, because it is for some people, but for me, maybe, it's not for me as a rap fan. Um, so I wanted to show people that I'm capable of doing that too. I'm capable of these things that all these other great artists are capable of. And although, we're climbing now, but although we've kind of what's a better way to say this? We've been slept on for quite some time. Although that had happened, I again, with the conceptual and being the best possible versions of ourselves and doing all those things, I wanted to show people, hey, like I deserve to be in the conversation with all of these people that are doing this in a great way.
You said in there that you actually read the comments, and that's like one of the scariest things on the planet for me to like hit that comment. But I'm like, am I gonna go? Am I gonna do this? Am I gonna dive into this? But I mean, honestly, with you guys, it does seem like everything I read was positive. So I mean, you've got a very good fan base that's not out to just shit on you. So that's good.
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, like, we've got a great relationship with our fans.
Hmm.
And and even the haters, I try to keep a great relationship with. And Danny's kind of the more fiery one, where if someone says something, he'll just clap back like real quick with like a witty,
Right.
clap back. And I'm more the methodical one, where I'll like read a comment and be like, okay, what do they mean by this? Like, how can I tell them in a professional manner that they suck? So like that's kind of, that's kind of the way that I approach it. But I mean, like, sure, comments can suck sometimes. For the most part, they're really good. And I've done pretty much everything in my life based off of people telling me that I can't. So when
Right.
I see someone that say that I can't do something, I'm like, all right, bet, here we go. I gotta
Right.
I gotta prove you wrong now. So that's kind of what Monster and Me was for the people who were like, well, I don't know about this guy's raps, I don't know about his bars. I was like, all right, let me write a song like this and show him what it's about. Um, because in actuality, like writing rap music to or rap lyrics and bars to rock songs is actually really hard to do. And that's why the reason you hear a lot, well, when a lot of people try and attempt to do it, it comes off disingenuous, is because it's a really difficult thing to do, to blend them, simply because like the feel behind a rap song is usually more charismatic. It usually has what we like to call in 2023 a vibe.
Mhm.
Um, and it really kind of has that like that head nod flow to it. Like when you're listening to a hip hop thing, you just get that head nod going, and you're just feeling it. You get a different type of head nod with rock and metal. It's not the same charismatic vibe. It's usually a little bit more angsty, It's a little bit more straight to it. So when I get like a rock beat and I'm trying to write a rap to it, a lot of times it'll pigeonhole me into a particular place. So like I'm trying to break out of that is really difficult. So that's why we wanted to take, the rap beat like we did. And instead of like trying to turn a rock song into a rap song, we turned a rap song into a rock song.
I could see that. The one thing you were talking about, the maybe not being the biggest fan of current state of rap. And, my son is 17, listens to a lot of like the newer rap. We'll listen to it in the car, listen to it here and there. And the one thing that I think that loses me on it is he listens to a lot of stuff that's got all the auto tune all over it.
Sure.
And one thing that I liked about a lot of the guys I grew up listening to was like you said, it was being charismatic and the voice.
Yeah.
And, the voice is so much of why we like so many people, like a Snoop, like a Dre, like Exhibit, like, all those guys back in the day that had very distinct voices, DMX, all those guys. And once you pile on so much auto tune on that stuff, it just takes that element away from it.
That happens with every genre.
Yeah.
Definitely rap, but you're right. I mean, like, and that's one of the things that I think that differentiates rock and metal bands too, is when you can listen to it and you can go, oh, that's this person. Like I can clearly tell that that's this guy.
Yeah.
Like for example, Corey Taylor, when you listen to Slipknot, you can, or anything, Stone Sour or whatever he's involved in, you go, oh, that's Corey Taylor. I know his voice. So like, that's one of the things that I said to Danny on this record. It was like, you've got to be Danny. Like, I know that you're great at singing and I know that you can do this, but you've got to channel Danny. And that way, when people hear you, they go, oh, that's Danny Kaye's. And that's something that, like I feel like I've got a very distinct voice for what I do. But yeah, you're right. Like the hip hop, like when I hear like the auto tune hip hop stuff, like I'm not bashing auto tune because there's a time and place for it. And more artists use it than people think. Like, but when it's slathered all over something and you can't, it just sounds like a computer. That's basically what it is to me.
Yeah, when you use it as a tool, that's fine. But when you use it as the whole thing, that's when it kind of gets a little bit out of hand.
Right. And the only person that can do that and get away with it is T-Pain.
Right.
That's like
T-Pain.
That's like his thing. It's just funny because he's actually a really good singer.
Yeah. He came out with that War Pigs recently that all the metal fans were like, all right, he's cool. He's cool in my book.
Yeah, no, dude can actually sing his ass off. It was just part of his it was just part of the way that he did it with the auto tune that gave him his name. Turn the auto tune up to 100 and just straight line everything.
Have you ever watched his? He has like a behind the music, and he took it. He said he didn't know what that sound was, and so he had recorded. And I think it was on like Audacity or something crazy, but he had recorded himself, and he kept going through all the filters trying to find auto tune. And he couldn't find it. He said it took him a year to find that filter, and then that's when he ran with it after that. But yeah, it's crazy that he said it took him a year to figure out what that sound was because he wanted to use that sound.
Well, it worked for him.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. I kind of want to jump into some of these videos, man. Obviously, the Monster Made video is fun. Do you enjoy making videos? Do you enjoy the process? And once you get the final result and all that good stuff.
I do. It's difficult though because it's a different type of art, right?
Yeah.
And just like when you create music and you go into the studio and you work with the producer or the engineer and creating your songs, they have to have an understanding of your vision. So it's the same way on the video side. I'm just not as good at the video side. So sometimes getting my vision or one of the other guys' visions across doesn't necessarily hit with the people that are doing it, and that can make it frustrating. It is fun to create, but it is also insanely expensive. And it's getting like crazy more expensive as the days go on. So, but also that the competition in the video world, especially in the rock and metal side, is becoming insane as well. So like putting all those things together, it's like, yes, I love creating videos. And I think that having the imagery for the song really paints a picture and brings it to life in a way that you may not have had that before. But at the same time, it's like, man, like, do we got the budget for this? Right. I mean? Like, so that's the difficult part of it.
Is that when you start to think you're like, do it cheaper, man. Just think of the exposure you'll get from doing our video, and then you turn into that guy.
Yeah, that doesn't even work anymore, right? I mean, social
No.
media reels and TikToks have really kind of killed all of that. So that guy can't even come out anymore. The exposure, and which I'm fine with because I don't want to do anything for exposure either. So,
Right. No, I totally don't either.
yeah, so it's like, when people are like, "Oh, you play this show for $400, don't worry, it's exposure," and it's like, nah, I don't think so.
Just think of the
So,
crowd.
but I mean, like, there's so many artists on our side, like, Falling in Reverse and Ronnie Radke being one of them, and Ice Nine Kills, and I Prevail, and I could go down Motionless in White, and I could go down that list that have done such killer music videos that you watch it and it's basically a cinematic experience, and you're like, oh man, this is the sickest thing ever. It's fantastic to see the growth on our side, but then the flip side of that coin is it makes it really hard for a band that's trying to grow to be able to kind of keep up with that type of production. So that's kind of where we're kind of in the in between, right? Where we're like not a small band and we've got some great ideas and opportunities, but we're also not on that level to where we can just go out and spend whatever it is, crazy amounts of money on a music video. So it does make it a little bit more difficult. But when you get there, you can do some sick shit. You can do some. I mean, you've seen their videos, right? I mean, they're nuts. They're so good.
Yeah, I mean, the days of all right, we're gonna put you guys in a warehouse. It's gonna be really dark.
yeah, exactly. I don't know if you've seen our music video for "Hate Me Too."
Well, I was getting to that one next. So
yeah, well, there's a line in there that talks about what you just said, and I feel like it's gone unseen. But there's a line like after the crazy scene. For anyone who hasn't watched it, go watch it. There's an insane scene that happens in that music video. But after that insane scene, Danny comes back into the warehouse that we're in. And I deliver a line that's like, I know that we're in a warehouse like every other music video ever, but I swear that this one's going to be different.
Right. Yeah, man, the Hate Me Too video. Well, we'll start with the song first. I mean, obviously, we've got XM in the car. Anytime I go from like my house to the gas station and back, I hear it all the time. I mean, obviously they're pushing it on Sirius XM. Just gotta talk about that and just kind of how that one's kind of hitting people, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's a happy sounding song that's not so happy, with a very lighthearted, satirical music video that is definitely dark. And that was kind of like the last song of the batch, or the second to last song of the batch. It's very outside the norm for something that we would typically create. We've created a couple songs like it in the past, but it's not necessarily the avenue that we would say that we really want to travel down too often. But we get experimental sometimes, and that was one of those opportunities to be experimental. And we're like, okay, how do we make a dark themed song sound like it's the song of the summer? And that was the idea around its creation. Another part of it, and I'm very transparent with everything that I talk about. Another part of it is that we get approached on the record label side of things that that they would like particular styles of songs to go to radio with, because we are partially a radio band. So that's one of those songs where like we can write. It's not necessarily in our comfort zone, but we can write within that zone. But this particular song, we wanted to do that, take that approach that we were asked to take, but at the same time, make it for us instead of like, that was again, the entire reason behind what we did with this record was to do it for us. So even though that we were going to create a song for radio, or it was going to be like this song that was going to have a mass appeal, we wanted it to be from ashes to new. So how would we do that? And I feel like we nailed it on our part, but also we wanted it to be a song that we could also enjoy for years and not get tired of listening to. So, that was the goal, and I feel like we achieved it. And I think the fans love the song. So, I think it worked out on all ends for all parties.
Yeah, I mean the line of "I wish I hated you, and after all this shit, you should hate me too." Like I feel like I've been in that relationship or that scenario many times in my life.
Yeah, I've said it in a couple other interviews. Are you have you listened to Dane Cook or like watched any Dane Cook stuff like back in the day?
Yeah, I love Dane Cook.
Yeah, me too. Like he was, in the early 2000s, he was probably my favorite comedian, and I'm sure he was probably he was huge, right?
Yeah.
So he had a joke where he was talking about how the girls would like get together and the one girl would be in a toxic relationship and her friend would always be like, Sarah, you have to leave him. And she would be like, it's not that easy. My CDs are in his truck. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
always
Yeah.
coming up with just a stupid excuse as to why you have to stay with somebody in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's kind of like what that song reminds me of that joke is like, we shouldn't be together. Why are we together? And it's like, oh, well, your CDs are in my truck, so you can't go anywhere.
Actually, it's funny you brought Dane Cook up. I actually just watched like kind of the rise and fall of Dane Cook thing on YouTube last night, and it's just crazy how I don't know how much you got into Dane Cook or like how deep you get into his story, man. But the whole brother stealing, like they
Yeah.
can at least find $13 million that he stole, and he might have stole more. I mean, like, how do you lose that kind of money? That's crazy.
Dude, his brother robbed him blind.
Yeah.
He took like his entire fortune, man.
Yep.
It's insane. Yeah, no, I was a big fan. Real big fan to the point where my personality almost changed to Dane Cook's personality when,
Right.
when I was younger. I loved him that much. But I mean, the last thing that I think was I can't even remember vicious cycle or something. I think was the last thing that I had really kind of gotten into with him. But I definitely know a lot of the backstory and the craziness that happened with him.
Yeah, he's definitely and the one thing about the special too, it did show because I mean, when I was growing up and I was watching comedy in the 80s and 90s, and then kind of that lull, and then Dane Cook came out, and like I loved his Comedy Central specials, I loved his CDs, but yeah, he did kind of towards the I think it's Vicious Circle, I think is
Is that what is Vicious Circle? Yeah,
because it's like a smaller toned down thing, and yeah, it wasn't as funny, and then I kind of lost interest, but yeah, man, he kind of took comedy by storm, and then and I love the kind of DIY ethos that he had too, where he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna rent out the arenas and I'm gonna sell the tickets and I'm gonna make all the money, and you guys can, kiss off kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, dude. He was great, man. And I've seen him pop up from time to time. And the stuff that I've seen has been pretty funny still. So, he's a funny dude, man. And he definitely, weirdly enough, inspired a lot of the stuff that I did early on, man. Is just, it's funny where you can pull inspiration from. For me, like, as a musician, I pull it from all over the place. It's not just music. So he was one of them. Tons of musicians were one of them. Sports were a gigantic inspiration for me. Life in general, man, it's just, it inspires me to do the things that I do and write the things that I write about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, even in like with the podcasting and things like that, I try to take more from sports talk than I do like other music podcasts, because I listen to so much sports talk, getting throughout the day and stuff like that. So yeah, I totally get trying not to draw too much inspiration from the actual field that you're in.
You listen to Colin Cowherd?
Not so much the national stuff. A lot of Titan centric stuff. I like Colin Cowherd. I think he's got he has his moments.
He does. I used to listen to a lot of national sports talk when I worked for Comcast back in the day. Like I would be in my work van and like, you can only listen to so many radio stations every day of the week before you start hearing the same song over and over and over. And even when you don't, it's not the same song over and over. You kind of latch onto it and think that it is. So I would kind of mix it up and I would listen to sports talk. I would listen, to like your normals like Dan Patrick and Colin Cowherd. They would always be on your national stuff. And, being a gigantic Eagles fan, I always wanted, especially during football season, I would always have it on.
Yeah.
So especially when we're doing well, when the Eagles weren't doing well, I don't think that I listened to it too much, but when they had something to talk about, I was definitely in there quite often. So, but I get it, man. Like, because sports talk radio is killer.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting. It's, that's what they do all the time, and it is definitely, was definitely something that I enjoyed listening to back in the day. I haven't listened to it much as of recent, but back in the day, I listened to it a lot.
I listened to a good podcast with Colin Cowherd, kind of talking about his origin story. Like I'll watch any documentary, anything about anybody that kind of rose to success, and kind of hear how they started out. But he had a great story about when he first went national. Like he's like, you know what? I'm only going to talk about the Cowboys, LeBron, Kobe. Like he kept it to like 4 or 5 topics because those are the topics that move the needle.
Right.
He's like, I'm not going to get on and just randomly talk about, the Chargers kicking situation. You know,
Right.
he's like just cut out all the fat and just talk about, you know, things that people want to hear about.
Yep. And he pushes buttons.
Right.
He certainly pushes buttons,
But
which works. I mean, pushing buttons works, man. I mean, you know, you look at a lot of people in the music industry which ones are the most successful? Well, most of the ones that push buttons. I do like to think though that it's not the only way to be successful. So, because I'm not a button pusher. I'm more like Rex from Toy Story, where I'm like, I don't like confrontation. You know,
me
so
too,
like,
yeah.
yeah. So for me, like pushing buttons isn't really my thing. So I do like to think that there are ways to do it. Like, you know, I know that everyone always gives us the Linkin Park comparison, but you know, I think one of the things that Linkin Park, that besides their music, that always was inspirational to me, is that they were just kind of like normal dudes, and like their music was what people fell in love with them for. And then when they fell in love with their music, they realized how great of people they were, and they fell in love with them as people. So it wasn't necessarily their an outlandish personality that gave them their notoriety. It was their music that gave them their notoriety. And that's what I really want to be known for, is like, you know, how good our music was. So like, you know, personality wise, like, yeah, I'm here. I'm an A personality. I am a very outgoing person, but I like to be on the happy side of, like, you know, the hippie side of things, if that's what you want to call it, where I'm like, yo, love, peace, and rock and roll, baby. Let's go.
Let's just all hug it out. Well, speaking of love, peace, and rock and roll, let's talk about the Hate Me Too video. You know, the blow up doll. I mean, I can't believe you're doing that to Danny. I mean, that's just trying to take his lady like that, man.
That was his idea. That whole video was his idea.
Well, it's funny because I was listening to the song so much, and then today, you know, I sat down to watch the videos, and that video came on, and at first I'm like, really, a blow up doll? And then by halfway through it, I'm mad at the blow up doll for like texting and then, like, you know, kind of doing some stuff on the sly, and then he kills her, and I'm like, all right. And then, you know, the cocaine line where he basically just comes out just covered in like cocaine and stuff, man. I was cracking up and into the video the entire time.
Yeah, we wanted to make it as absurd as possible. Because, I mean, it gets so hard, right? When you use music videos and you use lyrics, and again, going back to what we talked about with budgets and things like that, like, how can you create a music video that's not a warehouse music video, that is like a lower budget music video, but make it look cool and make it interesting? And that's what we wanted to do. Did it necessarily hit? No, because I'm pretty sure it got shut down in a lot of countries. So, so I think that, like, you know, we went a little overboard with the idea, but, you know, we wanted to keep it lighthearted, satirical, just funny, and just, you know, out of the box, off the wall thinking. And no better person to like lead that than Danny Case. It was like, yo, hey, Danny, you got an idea for this music? Any idea he ever has is just absolutely absurd. Right. So it's like, hey, Danny, you got an idea for music videos? Like, what if my girlfriend's a blow up doll and we murder her? And I'm like, all right, you know. So like then that evolved, and then Lance, like, we're doing it. Supposed to be, we were going to turn it into like a sequel story. And, like, you know, like, murdered her in that video. And then the next music video, she comes back as a zombie and like murders all of us. And then, like, they're stuck together as zombie, you know, as zombie significant others. And it didn't really work out to do that. So Lance was like, okay, well, what if we just eat her at the end? Like, bro, are you kidding? I mean, Lance is like the Eli Roth guy, like, you know, Green Inferno, loves all that stuff. So it's like, he's like, what if we just eat her at the end? I'm like, all right, whatever, we're already here. If you want to eat her at the end, then I guess that's what we're doing. So
yeah, Danny had some good lines at the end. He definitely had some nice throw-in lines at the end there, you know.
Yeah, that was all ad lib, man. Like, that all happened the day of,
right?
And then, like, the ending, we had multiple different endings. Like, what are we going to use for an ending? But there were some people along the pipeline that were really scared of the music video. The music video had been done for a year, and we got a call like 6 days prior to its release. Like, we can't release this.
What? Wow.
And I was like, what? Why? What's wrong with it? And they're like, well, you know, you can't, you killed a doll. Right. Yes, exactly. what are you even worried about? What people were going to think about that? I'm like, no, because like that's not what we think about it. Like it's very obvious that it's just stupid. Like,
Right.
it's very obvious that this is a very dumb approach to what we're doing, and like we wanted it to be as absurd as possible. So so we released it, but we ended up changing the endings up a couple times before it came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely definitely something to go see. So yeah, if whoever's listening hasn't seen it, make sure to go check it out. Let's see. Let's you just finished up in this moment, Motionless and White tour, playing like some gigantic venues, man. Kind of talk about that tour and talk about going out with those bands.
I mean, it was sick. I mean,
Yeah.
We originally in the summer we were going to do a headline tour for the album release, and we had some like front runners for support, and those front runners ended up getting some other tour offers, and it kind of left us where we were like, all right, well, what are we going to do for support on our headlining tour? And then we had gotten a call that was like, oh, hey, Motionless and In This Moment are going out. They've got an open slot, but it's the first slot of the tour. Do you guys want it? And I was like, oh man, all right, let me think on this, because we've got the setting up the biggest album of our career as we're in the middle of this explosion of growth. Like, how do we really want to be perceived and portrayed? Do we want to be seen as the number one band of a 4 bill, where we feel like maybe we're not necessarily supposed to be in that position? So there's a lot to think about. I was like, do we want to do a headlining tour? Do we want to do this tour? And we landed on, it doesn't matter positioning. Like we landed on like, this bill is like such a good bill, and we're just part of such a crazy good bill. And that's the way that we viewed it. So we're like, yeah, you know what? We'll do this. Like, let's do this tour. Let's go out. Let's get in front of some people who may not even know who we are, or may not even heard of us because they're in a different lane of this industry. And let's just go out and make the best of it while releasing the biggest record of our career. And it worked out. It couldn't have worked out more perfectly, honestly. Like it was, no one viewed it as, oh, well, they're the first band. And if they did view it as the first band, we saw so many comments from people who were like, how are you opening this
Right.
door? So it's like, the perception is like, okay, they're either looking at it as a stacked lineup, the way that we viewed it, or they're looking at it as like, well, that band certainly doesn't belong where they are at. That band is so much better, which is a good way to look at things. So, but not only that, the fan base was so receptive to us as a band, maybe a band that they may not have known before, that, our merch sales, like we couldn't slow them down to the point where we got halfway through the tour and we couldn't keep merch at the table. We were selling out of everything to the point where we had to like go to Walmart and make 8x10s to sign 8x10s. And like it became crazy. The merch sales were just like insane. So it was fantastic.
It would have been nice if you went to like JCPenney to get the actual group photo together with to make the. At first, when you said that, that's where my mind went. I was like, they went to JCPenney and got the group photo to make.
We did that before with Santa Claus.
Did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, 100%.
Too fun, man. Let's do a top 5 list. Your top 5 tour essentials. When you're packing your bag to go on tour, what do you need?
Oh, this is a really tough question. I mean, you need your toothbrush, right? Everyone probably should say that.
All right.
I got to have my vitamins. Those are important. I've got to have my MacBook because I've got to create. That's 3, right? I mean, there's so many. You could go down the toiletry list all day long. Those are all essential.
Is there anything like a pillow? Like you bring your own pillow?
Oh yeah, I bring my own pillow. 100%. I have a Sleep Number concave pillow, man. I have like my back likes to act up when I go into different like sleeping scenarios. Like if I go from like one bed to another, it takes time to adjust. Like my back, for some reason, like my posture's crap from constantly sitting in front of computers, writing music, and like just sitting like slouched down like this. My posture has turned terrible. So like my neighbor, he's a physical therapist, and he's like, dude, he's like, everyone, he's like 90% of the people that I see that have back problems is because of their pillow. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, if you've got a crap pillow, you're going to destroy like from the middle of your spine up is just going to hurt. And that's usually where I have pain. So like the pillow is incredibly important. So we've got Toothbrush, vitamins, MacBook, pillow, and let's get one obscure thing. What do I have to have? Let me think on this, man, because I know there are some things that I take on tour that have got to be from home. What do I have to take from home? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Did you take like any Eagles memorabilia, anything like that out?
Well, during the football season, I have to have an Eagles jersey,
right?
Because if I'm playing on football Sunday, I've got to wear my jersey. So yeah, we'll go with that. That's cool because that's different, right? So like, okay, so we've got a toothbrush, we've got the MacBook, vitamins, a pillow, which is a Sleep Number concave for anyone out there that's looking for a new pillow. And I'm not sponsored by them, but it is fantastic.
Use the code Brandyberry.
Check out. Yeah. Use the code Matt Brandyberry from Ashes to New. And then the Eagles jersey. I have to have the Eagles jersey if I'm on tour on Sundays, man. Like it's got to, I am on the Wi-Fi. Like, where's the Wi-Fi? Where is the Wi-Fi? I've got to watch the game. So,
well, man, I'll tell you this. Like, I toured, my first big tour I ever did was like 2002. And this was obviously pre-smartphone, pre-anything. And so like Sundays was always a drive day for us. I don't know why, but I had a friend back home that would text me play by play because there was no internet radio. There was there was nothing you could do. And he would literally text me like, McNair handoff, Eddie George 6 yards. I mean, it was shit like that.
Like play by play, just really.
Yeah, it was just like constant because I'm such a fan, but I wasn't at home and there's nothing I could do. And then now it's like, yeah, just get YouTube TV on your phone. I'm like, come on.
Before it used to be like, all right, I need to stop. Where's the bar? Where's the bar that's got the Sunday ticket? Because that's where I need to be. And then it became Reddit feeds. Then that's usually what I would do is Reddit feeds because that would be a good way to watch the game. But my wife would certainly text me too, like the same way, like all right, I'm playing tonight. Like I need updates, like what's going on. So they all come in handy, man, because I can't miss it. It hurts me. Like when I worked at Comcast for the decade that I worked there, I worked Sunday through Thursday.
Yeah.
And I would burn almost all of my vacation time during the football season.
Yeah.
If it was a game, if it was I would work 8 to 4:30. So if it was a 1 o'clock game, I would take a half day.
Yeah.
Like, so I would work 8 to 12. If it was a 4 o'clock game, I would take a half day because you can only take them in increments of half. So I would take a half day. If it was, if I had a show in my local band the night before and then a game the next day, I just took Sunday off. So like, it became a thing where I worked Sunday through Thursday, but really I worked Monday through Thursday and had no vacation when vacation actually counted.
Yeah. I remember working in the mall and I was always like, please don't schedule me on Sundays. But obviously in retail, you have to be scheduled some Sundays. And so like those Sundays, I would listen to the pregame stuff on the radio, and then the store opens at noon. So you kind of got to like hope and pray. And then you would take a 15-minute break. So you'd run down to the whatever Electronic Express or Circuit City or whatever's in the mall that sells TVs. You got to run down there for a second. Then you got to come back, and then you try to put your lunch right about, the fourth quarter towards the end of the game. So if there's anything crazy, yeah, I mean, I think you and I are from the same cloth in the obsessed about football and trying to figure out life around it.
Dude, it's probably one of my most healthy obsessions, except for during the game when it's going wrong. Then it's incredibly unhealthy.
No, it's definitely
I'm just yelling and screaming, and when we lost the Super Bowl, it was nuts. But one of the things that I did on Sundays when I did go to work and the game was on, I would try and knock out as many jobs as I could early on in the day. Like I would call because it's Sunday, most people are home, and I would call customers and be like, "Hey, are you home today? Like, are you home early so I can come and do this?" And then I would go and when I would have a break, I would take out my test TV because we had test TVs working for Comcast, and I would go to a pedestal Like pedestal is where like the cable tap comes into like
Okay,
underground
yeah.
neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And I had a long spool of cable that I had made for this situation. And I would go to the pedestal and I would park my van next to the pedestal and I would run my cable and hook my test TV up in my van and sit in my van and watch football on my breaks, just hooked up to the pedestal on the test TVs, man.
That's too much, man. I used to joke that like if we lost, like if the Titans lost, my week would be shot. And I
Yep.
think I'm to the point where like I'm shot until about Tuesday, maybe Wednesday morning, and then I'm like back to normal.
Yeah,
But
mine's
yeah,
not as bad anymore. It used to be the same way. Entire week, I'm just bummed. All right, we got to win next Sunday. Like I was really that involved, but I'm not that bad anymore. I think I got like a 1-day hangover like you. Like I got like a 1-day like, oh man, what a crummy thing I've really emotionally invested myself into. But I think it's going to be even more different now that the way that we lost this last Super Bowl. I'm just like whatever. Like at the end of the Super Bowl, I was like I was on that fence with the conspiracy theorists of the NFL world. I'm like, this is rigged. I'm like, this is rigged. Like,
yeah.
and I said it, and I'm like, I almost believed it too. I'm like, this is just the way that Super Bowl went, dude. Like the way that for being an Eagles fan and paying close attention to all the NFL and knowing how good the Chiefs are and knowing what they needed to plan for to go into that game, and knowing that they planned for it. But then when you get into the game and you've got one of the best defensive lines in football, and they can't get any footing. They can't gain any traction. They're throwing their cleats. They're trying all these new things. The field is just too wet, but it's an indoor field. Like, there's basically look like they're on ice skates. So it's like, they can clog up the middle and stop the run because they're really good at it. But getting to Patrick Mahomes was impossible because they couldn't get the corner. And people like Hassan Reddick, who were menaces off the edge, he couldn't get the corner at all to get to Patrick Mahomes, so he just picked the D apart. But then when you go to our offense and you go, okay, Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders, and you look at the run game and you look at the short pass game with Dallas Goedert and all those things, or the cuts of people like AJ Brown and Devontae, they couldn't get any footing. Like, so it's like you just took one of the best defensive lines completely out of the game. And you took one of the best run team in the NFL out of the game, and you expect them to beat Patrick Mahomes through the air.
Right.
Like, get out of here. Like, no one's doing that. Come on. You know what I mean? So it was like watching that and then knowing that we could actually stay in the game as well as we did with the field situation, which was highly acknowledged after the fact. But knowing that they could stay in the game with the field situation and that the game ended on the only holding call of the entire game. There was not one single holding call in that entire game, and then that was the one they called. I was like,
I remember that now.
I'm like, bro, come on, man. Like, it's got to be rigged. Like, it's got to be. But
yeah, it's funny. It's funny when you lose. Like, that's like, all right, yeah, this is rigged. I think we played the Cowboys on like Monday or Thursday Night Football or something last year, and I remember tweeting right after the game, like, well, I guess Dallas is America's team or something like that, because I was like, some of these calls are just terrible.
Oh yeah, dude, and it always seems to go in one direction, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but if my team wins, it's always legit. That's all
yeah, I mean, well, everyone knows that Patrick Mahomes is now the NFL darling. Like, Tom Brady's gone. They need a new front runner for the darling. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes. And that's not me throwing shade at the guy. The guy's like one of the most talented quarterbacks we've seen in a very long time. So I expected a lot of calls to go the Chiefs' way. Like, I expected that to happen in the Super Bowl. And it didn't really happen. Actually, it was very, very well called game, if you ask me. I thought that the game, I thought that they let him play.
Yeah.
I thought that the game was really fair on both sides with the officiating. I was incredibly surprised. There was some calls that went our way and there were some calls that went their way, but I felt like it was pretty evened out and it was pretty fair. The field sucked. That's the moral of the story is the field was absolutely god awful. You put it on a different field, I think there's a different outcome. But that last holding call that they called when he just kind of had a little handful of his jersey, like, yes, was it holding? Sure, it was holding. But the fact that they hadn't called it the entire game and then they called it right there, that's where I lost my shit. And I was like, no, come on. Come on, this is absurd. So anytime we got a lot of fans and obviously in the Kansas City area and everything that are Chiefs fans, and I always give them shit. All the football fans, like I'm always like, I've got a great rivalry with all of our like super fans that are fans. Like I see the Chiefs fans, and I'm always just on stage, like doing this on stage, or
Right.
I have got no problem expressing the love for my football team and my competitive and hatred for all the other teams in the NFL, especially the Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders.
It was funny when I did Knotfest Twitch from Knotfest Iowa a couple of years ago, and Tech Nine was on it, and Tech Nine came out just to Chiefs Kingdom or whatever his song is. And I was like, this is a very specific thing to be very so focused into one fan base. Everyone in the crowd probably has their own football team with a small contingent of Chiefs fans. But it's just funny to put all of your eggs in that one basket to be such a fan, because I mean, he came out, all of the screens were Chiefs colors and Chiefs stuff, and he came out to his Chiefs Kingdom song. I was like, it's a bit much there, bro.
Dude, I've been booed for saying things that I've said on stage about football.
Well, yeah.
Which,
I mean, that's
which
what's
is
fun
to be
about
expected.
it, though. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Like, especially every time I'm in Dallas, I have to make a remark. I have to.
Yeah.
And then the boos come, boo, and everyone's booing. It's like, maybe your boo is warranted, like in 1995. But like, come on, man, you haven't won a Super Bowl since VHS was hip. Like, so I don't, I don't want to hear it, Dallas.
Well, a guy at my work the other day said that he was a Cowboys fan, and I was like, all right, I get it. I get it if you're like 50 and you're a Cowboys fan, not in Dallas. But I sat there and I thought about it for a minute. I was like, wait a minute, this guy looks really young. He's a new guy. And I was like, how old are you? Just kind of, and he was like, oh, it came out that he was born in like 94 or 97 or something. I was like, so you've never seen the Cowboys be good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get it if you're an older generation that saw the 3 Super Bowls and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But like if you're a young fan in your 20s, that's a Cowboys fan, not in Dallas, I don't understand that one.
Yeah, like the height of your Cowboys fandom is the butt fumble. Like you're like, the Tony Romo butt fumble, man. Like,
yeah, the botched extra
point.
the
botched hold where they lost, man. Yeah, so it's like
fun,
it's like that's the height, you know what I mean? Like Tony Romo is a great quarterback, but they just, that you're a fan of stats at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of these years it'll happen. They'll go back, Dallas will go back to the game and they'll win it. And, I mean, when, I don't know. I hopefully never, because I'm an Eagles fan. But until that day happens, I am not worried about the Dallas Cowboys. It's the same with the Giants. Like since the Eli Manning era, when they won a couple of Super Bowls and they were a scary team and they had the 3-headed monster in the backfield. And they had those different things. Like, I haven't been scared of the New York Giants in years, especially when they go and they play the Eagles in Philadelphia. Actually, those are the games I like to go to. It used to be awesome to go and heckle Eli Manning in Philadelphia because like he couldn't take it. Like he would just fold under pressure in Philly. Like he was historically bad on Sunday nights in Philly. So if we played New York in Philly on Sunday night, you best believe I was buying tickets to that game because I needed to be part of the crowd that was heckling Eli. Right. And then Washington, Washington. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. You guys are a dumpster fire over there. Get your stuff figured out, man.
Get your stuff together. Yeah, man. It's definitely. I'm pumped, man. Football season to be here. What, next week? Week after? Next week? I guess a week from today. First game. Dude. Yeah, man, I'm pumped. I can't wait, man. It's funny is I'm a big, I love all of the Crowbar and all those guys like down in New Orleans, and I'm friendly with a lot of those people on Facebook and whatnot. And I'm already starting to see because week 1 is Titans Saints.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't want to have to go up against you, Phil Anselmo, but we're coming for you.
We've got the Pats first week. So.
It was funny. Speaking of the Pats, the last preseason game, Titans Patriots, and I was watching the game like before the game. They were showing the crowd a little bit, and there were these 2 people in Cowboys jerseys sitting up front. And I'm like, why is there someone in Cowboys jerseys sitting in the front row? And they were like waving at somebody, and I figured it out. They were wearing Ezekiel Elliott jerseys, who's now a Patriot. I think I was like, what a weird thing to do. Like if if you're no longer on my team, AJ Brown, you know, like I'm not gonna go to a Eagles game and be like, remember me? You know, like,
Right, right.
remember when you played for our team? Like, you're dead
You
to me
know,
now.
Danny is a fan of so Danny follows sports kind of, but he's not a fan of any teams really. He's more of a basketball fan. He loves
Right.
basketball. But he's a fan of players. So like he's like, like a fan of people who are really good at their craft. So
Yeah.
like, and that's inspirational to him. So he's a fan of like Steph Curry. He loves Steph Curry. He talks about him all the time.
Yeah.
In football, he's the same way. Like he loves Patrick Mahomes. So he's that way. So maybe those people were just huge Zeke fans, man. Maybe they just loved Zeke, and that's why they had. Probably not the case, but I'm just trying to make an excuse.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if they followed him since like Ohio State and then followed him to whatever, that type of thing.
Love Zeke so much.
I just love that guy. Well, man, I'm gonna let you get out of here and get off and get on to the rest of your day, man. For the last time, Blackout out now. Make sure to go check it out and check out all the videos, man. You guys put a lot of time, effort, and love into those things. So make sure to check out all the videos. And so Matt Brandyberry of From Ashes to New.
My God.
Thanks for taking some time here.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Newpod, notfest.com.